Hello and welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. We are moving on with Season 4, onto Episode 4, which is Unruhe. Brian, tell us about the legacy of Unruhe.
I think it's one of those episodes that I think it's one that I don't feel like I see it get mentioned enough. I think it is a favourite from Season 4 for a lot of X-Files fans, but maybe not quite number one of Season 4. So as a result, I don't know, it's just sitting in that awkward place of being what I think is a very good episode. I have got no clue what you're going to make of this one, but yeah, it's one I feel like deserves more chatter than what it gets from what I see. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really interested to see what you think about this one. Whether it's going to turn out like irresistible, or whether we're going to agree on it or not. But we'll find out.
Okay, so we're going to do the guessing game.
We are. Do you want to throw a number at me? So 217 episodes. Where does this?
I'm going to throw 87.
You thinking 87? Well, yeah. I can tell you did slightly underestimate. So it's actually 80. So
wow, of course.
The IMDb fans put it at 80 out of the 217 episodes, which is pretty respectable. It's climbing up. It's certainly in the top half. That's for sure. It's climbing, just teetering on the edge of being in the top third. So.
Okay, so we just dive into it then.
Let's crack on. Okay, so we open up on a man and a woman, and the guy seems very eager to get going. They're parked in the car, and she's got to go in and get a passport photo done, and he's clearly like, you get the sense right off the bat that this couple are on the run. But she's stopping to get a passport photograph done. She goes in, she gets the passport photo, she comes out, she finds a boyfriend dead. He's got a really nasty mark on his ear with blood pouring out, and then she gets kind of like injected with something that makes her kind of flake out. And then we go back to the inside the shop where the guy who took the passport photograph kind of takes off the film to have a look, because he's like, where is this woman? And he's like, oh, whatever. So he takes it off, assumes, I can only assume that he thinks she's not coming back. And then it turns out the photograph he took just a moment ago has this weird ass image of her being kind of caught by this claw and loads of other little weird ghost-like images on it, and it's quite a freaky image. But that's our opening scene. So coming off the back of Teleco that we did last time, in which both of us were like, this opening is just not intriguing at all. How does this one hit you?
Polar opposite. It's a fantastic opening. You've got the mystery of the couple. You don't know what they're up to. You've got the man in the rain slicker that comes in, and then the death and the abduction of the girl, and then the mystery of the picture. It's like a little story itself. It sets you up for the episode, and there's so many questions that you want to know, and you get the answers throughout this episode. It's a more complete episode than Teleco. It feels well thought out, and it's just a wonderful opening that really draws you in. And I love the kind of rain-soaked streets as well. I just thought it was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, for me, it's one of the best openings for me. It's just like, if you want to talk about an opening that sets up intrigue, this is definitely it. And that picture, the photograph, whoever came up with the designs for them, I just like, there's something about the photographs in this that sends a shiver down my spine. Just, great. Yeah, it is. So you get past the opening credits, and Mulder tells Scully about the victims and asks her thoughts on the photo. So it's, just kind of it's one of those where actually Scully doesn't have a lot of thoughts on it right now.
Yeah. She theorizes that the film was warped by a radiator and that they're out of date at this point.
Yes. So this is in the next scene. They go to see the druggist.
Yeah, they go to see right. Okay.
Yeah, they go to see the druggist, and Scully has a theory, but even she is forced to concede it's a stretch. It's
you really. It's not often you see Scully like really stretching on this one, because it's out of date and because it was heated up a bit. It's somehow created. Yeah, no.
That would explain somebody going on image and a big claw coming over the top of it. It's just like, sorry, Scully, but no, I'm afraid not. So an officer enters.
What I really love is Mulder. He's not arguing. He just kind of nods sarcastically.
He's looking at her going, you know this is BS. You know this is BS. Just waiting for it. Because as he's nodding, she's talking, isn't she? And then she just goes, oh, fine, yeah, I don't know. What do you think? And he's like, I don't have a theory yet. It's just, but let's see where it goes. So an officer enters to tell them that they may have wasted their time. The reason being that Mary, the girl who's been abducted, it turns out her and her boyfriend were into a bit of credit card fraud, and that's why they were on the run. And this officer's theory is that she's faked her own death and killed her boyfriend as part of that. Mulder even asks why kill the boyfriend? That doesn't make sense. So Mulder finds a Polaroid camera inside their place, takes some photos, and then gives his theory. So he takes some photos using this camera, and then just basically we get the same image basically. So the image that was at the druggist store is also on their film.
And what I like about it is the in-between scene that we don't see, where he's told Scully he doesn't have a theory. He does. And he just lets her percolate with unable to grasp a theory. And then until this point where he can literally just put out his proof. These several pictures that are all the same image. Which I kind of like. And then he comes out with the wacky theory.
Yeah. And his wacky theory is that it is kind of like a projection, so like mind projection on the
a psychic picture almost.
Like a psychic picture. So whoever the killer is must have stalked the victim, and if he was outside their window of the bedroom, then that psychic picture that was coming out of his head, that's why it got onto their Polaroid camera. Okay, so Mary stumbles onto a road. She's alive, it seems.
Surprise.
Yeah. Alive, but not so well. She's been drugged and lobotomized.
Lovely.
Yeah. So basically, a cop pulls over, finds her, and the next thing we see is she's been pulled. She's got into one of those MRI kind of machines,
CAT scan things.
Yeah. And Scully's just like horrified. Yeah, absolutely horrified. So she's looking at these scans and she's like, "Oh my goodness!" It's just, and she starts saying that whoever kidnapped her has done a lobotomy, and they've not done a good job of it. And apparently it's a just like the idea of it. I hate it. Every time I watch this episode, it goes right through me, and especially when you see her eyes and you see the blood trails, and you know that's the point where he's gone in, and he's just kind of stabbing around in there and don't really know what he's doing, and it's just like, it's one of those things where they don't have to show you anything; they just have to suggest everything that's happened, and makes me cringe. It just it's so effective. It's so much more effective.
It's so much more terrifying than if she had been found dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Because now she's a ward of the state, I guess.
Yeah.
The state will have to foot the bill for looking after her until she dies, because technically she's brain dead. But it's just, it's messed up. It's really messed up. So she's while she's in the MRI, she starts chanting Unruhe, Unruhe, Unruhe. Just at that point, a cop comes in and tells them that there's been another abduction.
Yeah.
So, and this time we see the abductee bound and gagged while a man speaks to her in German, prepping for another lobotomy. So, we've already been told what's happened with this woman, and now we see this other woman, this innocent victim, strapped in a chair, and we see the implement with which this guy is going to do said lobotomy, and it's just like, it's just, I hate anything to do with eyeballs, man. You don't even come near me with anything. You don't come near my eyeballs with anything. It's not happening. But yeah, I really feel tense for this woman. So great job in building that tension.
Yeah, and you don't have to see anything. No, you really don't. Your imagination just runs away with you.
Yeah, and we never do. We never see anything, and that's the point. And it's such a horrific episode. So we get another crime scene. It's a dead male accountant. So this is obviously where the woman's been abducted from. So it turns out the MO of this guy is to kill the boyfriend or kill the husband, and then take the woman. So there's no camera around. So Scully makes a connection with a construction site, but Mulder goes back to Washington to investigate their one and only true piece of hard evidence, which is the one time. Now, this is, you talk about times in the X-Files where people often say that, oh, Scully, come on, just wake up, will ya? Stop chasing some BS lead. Clearly, Mulder's right. He should be championing his cause in this case. This is the one time where actually, when he says, I'm going to chase down the one piece of genuine evidence, I'm like, no. Because that connection Scully has just made there is actually pretty damn good connection that any detective in their right mind would be following up now.
It's not even as if, and this is... It's not even as if he's got the technical ability to dig into the picture. He's literally sitting behind someone. Enhance.
Yeah.
Enhance.
I put, so in my notes, and we're not get there yet, but that was my note for it. That whole scene, I've just put enhance, 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 because I knew that's what you'd be saying. I knew you were going to be like enhance, enhance. So
it doesn't need to be there. It can still be with Scully helping with the investigation. Yeah,
he literally could have faxed that photo. Yeah, he could have faxed that photo through, and it probably would have been quicker, quite frankly. So yeah.
It's not an egregious error. It doesn't detract from the episode. It's just a bit silly. But how it's funny how some episodes you can be more forgiving with certain things.
Yeah.
And whereas if this happened in another episode, we'd be up in arms.
Yeah, but it's just Mulder he's always more like it's not out of character for him to chase the paranormal lead and reject stuff that detectives are saying that actually would probably sound reasonable. It's just in this case, I listen to what Scully's saying and I'm like, that's a damn good lead. Chase that. So for Mulder to say, I'm going to chase the only real lead we have, Like, I could understand this if he was like, that's a great lead, Scully. You chase that one down. I just want to check this photo out just in case. Let's cover all bases. But he doesn't. He uses the words, I'm going to chase down our only real lead. And I'm like, screw you. Man alive. So, Unruhe Man brings his latest girl a rather fetching dress.
Right. I was wondering what I'd meant here. Because it's just like Buffalo Bill shows victim new dress.
Yeah, it's very Buffalo Bill-esque. It's not a pretty dress, is it? It's like a nightie from the 1800s.
Yeah. I'm looking at my notes, and my next one I've got is good old enhance scene.
Yeah. So that's enhance, and it's just Mulder enhances and enhances until they see that it's like a shadow of a man, like elongated, kind of looming over the woman, and that's the way that Mulder he starts to get into his profiling mode. Obviously, he's looking at this picture and he's thinking, this is how the killer is seeing things. So why is this guy looming over? It's somebody who's looming over. So and then obviously they go into the face. And they find a face of a man in there. So Scully digs into the construction business, asks them to track down the foreman that was at both sites, and the
and when we're introduced to this guy, this was a very strong memory. This is where I remembered parts of this episode.
Right, okay.
It's because it's that actor with the flickering eyes.
The eyes, yeah.
And for some reason, in my memory, when it clicked in, I pictured him as a pharmacist for some reason.
Right.
Until it just, when I was thinking back to my skewed memory, and then he appeared here, and I was like, I remember this one. Yeah.
Have you ever seen this guy in anything else?
Oh, yeah. I think most prominently he's in Identity, James Mangold's movie about the people.
Oh, is he in that? Did he have the eye issue in that?
Yeah, he's got it in everything. It's just it just.
So that's an actual. So that's a thing that he just. Yeah. See, I wonder if that's just something he can do, and as a result, he's been typecast as weirdos, or whether it's just something.
Well, in Identity, he is the person that has the personalities within him.
Right. Okay.
So he's a bit crazy in it.
Yeah.
And I've seen him in other things as well, and he has that thing.
Well, I remember seeing him in an episode of CSI. I think it was CSI, and I was like, he's doing the eye thing again. It's like poor guy just gets typecast as these weirdos with a twitchy eye movement. But well, there you go. Yeah. If anybody can put me and Graham to rights there and tell us that this guy actually, doesn't have an eye condition, let us know. But so Scully visits the construction site and encounters Jerry Schnauz. Just as Mulder rings to tell her that the killer may have unusually long legs. And he comes out on these stilts. So because he's on a construction site, he's using these tools, these stilts that help him to get high up in places and that. So, but it makes for quite an amusing image because Mulder's talking about the photograph with the shadow that has the elongated legs, and then like he tells that to Scully, and then she turns around and sees this guy on stilts. So she pulls a gun and arrests the guy. But
I've quickly just jumped into the actor's IMDb page. Right?
Okay, couldn't help myself.
Yeah, he has nystagmus. I don't know, a condition which causes the person's eyes to move involuntarily.
Ah, right.
So there.
I thought that was a pretty good skill as an actor, to be honest. But now I'm just like, okay, no, it's not a skill. It's just him. But okay. So way to stigmatize somebody with a condition. So the few people that probably are inflicted with this said condition now
he's their hero, and you've just tore him down.
That the only time they've ever been reflected on television is through a serial killer on the X-Files and other other killers of note. Okay, so which that's a real shame. It really is.
Yeah. But anyway, the sequence I just love here is when he jumps across the void with the big legs. It's amazing.
He just goes for it, doesn't he? He's just like, I'm off, boom.
Yeah, and he makes it. Just
and falls off him at the same time. But it's quite. But again, it's really well directed, and it's like we have a scene here on a construction site that is tense. It's action packed, and it does what a scene should do. It gets you revved up, and like and yet the episode just before this, Teleco, the climax was in a construction site. And it was just totally anticlimactic. It was shot really flatly. It just wasn't well directed at all. There was no excitement to the action in it. So yeah, it just showed you right there. One episode later, they can frame another scene in a construction site, an action scene, and actually do something with it that's interesting and involving and tense. Yeah. So yeah. Okay, so we go from there to an interrogation scene, and we learn that Jerry was institutionalized as a young man for beating his father, the man in the photo, it turns out, half to death in 1980. And it also turns out his sister committed suicide in the same year. And you really get the sense from this scene that Scully hates this guy. Mulder
there's a cockiness to him because they're like, 1980 was a bad year. What happened? And there's like, well, John Lennon was shot.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem like crazed or dumb. It's just that kind of comments that shows a kind of relaxed nature within this interrogation. Yeah, which is just it's a wonderful throwaway line, but it shows how in control of himself he is.
Yep. It's like, other than the eye thing, which almost makes me wish they had cast someone else. But I do think this actor's great in this role, so I'm willing to let it slide. But like we said last week, again, this is the difference between last week's episode and this one. I said last week there's two kinds of freaks on the X-Files. There's the ones where you look at them and you go, yeah, freak, because it's like they come to the door and go, yes. No, there's nothing wrong with me. And right off, there's something wrong. Whereas this guy, other than the eye thing, he's having a natural conversation. His body language is quite natural. The intonation of his voice is natural. He's using full sentences. He holds down a day job. It's like this is one of the normal ones. And it almost feels like the eye thing could be a red herring. Like, this isn't the guy, but we're going to judge him because he's got the weird eye things. So it's like, it's good. So Mulder shows Jerry the photo, and he just, boom, he switches. It's like all of a sudden the walls come down, barriers come down. He can't hide what's going on in his head because he's literally seeing in a photo what he sees in his head. And at that point, Mulder says, like, where is she, Jerry? Where's the victim? And he just says, she's safe from the howlers. There's...
Which is kind of chilling. The way that, like you said, the walls come down.
Yes.
And the crazy comes out.
Yeah. And there's a sense from this point on. I feel there's a sense of sympathy or empathy with this guy. Certainly, Mulder has it at any rate, and that's what allows him to break Jerry's walls down to begin with. The fact that he can look at this photo and think, damn, this is what's going on in this dude's mind. Now let's break this down and figure out what this all means. And that's what allows him to get through to Jerry. It's just, and find the info about his father. And it's just like, and that's really what this episode is about. is that, you know, having a sense of empathy with people like Jerry, one, it helps you to catch them, and maybe even, you know, if we as a society could have this kind of empathy, maybe it would stop people like Jerry from being created in the first place. So it's a very well handled scene, because you got Scully as well, who's, like I say, she's very antagonistic towards him. At one point, I don't even notice, but when Mulder's kind of doing a lot of the talking, she's just eyeballing him, and she's just like, she's proper just staring right at him, like with a look that could cut glass, and you're just like, blimey, Scully, back off a bit. So, but yeah, anyway, so they go from there to the body. So basically, all the police kind of swarm on this location that Jerry's obviously told them about, and they find the victim, and she's dead. So, which is, again, it's quite a gut punch, because it's like, oh man, I thought they might have actually caught her. I thought they might have saved her. But yeah, and Scully's reaction to finding the body, you can see it on her face. It's the worst part of the job, and I think it's a really brilliantly handled scene, performance-wise, both from Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny, because Mulder at this point, he's really going, he's getting into the whole empathy side of things, because he's trying to dig deeper and figure Jerry out a bit more. But Scully's just like, no, we're done. We're done. He's been caught. She's dead. Let's go home. She's like, the way she sees it, it's almost like a failure on their part.
But I think there's a moment with Scully that, and I could be reading more into it, but she's upset that she's found a dead body. But at the same time, I feel as if she's happy she's free of the other punishment of being lobotomized and having to live out your life with yourself being robbed. You know what I mean? She's disappointed that she's late and unable to save this person, but at the same time relieved that she's not going to have to live her life with that forced lobotomy. Yeah,
like I didn't get that. But I mean, I'm not saying that's not there. I think I got the sense that she was hoping they were going to get there before he'd
done it.
Before he'd done it, I feel like her disappointment was from the fact that they were expecting to find her still alive and untouched, bound and gagged or whatever. But nope. So yeah. But again, like I say, it's great acting there from Anderson, just because you sense the weight of this moment, and it kind of makes you feel for anyone in law enforcement who has to do this on a on a daily basis. And so Mulder refers back to the photos in a way that suggests sympathy for Jerry. Scully is not interested. Then we get a scene in which Jerry escapes.
This guy is a serial killer in a small town. He's very dangerous. The things he's doing are horrifying, and there's one police officer there to process him.
He's he takes his picture, takes his mugshot, and then turns around, turns his back. I'm pretty sure any cop, like I don't need to be a cop, to surmise that any cop watching this would be like, you would never turn your back on a suspect, not even a suspect, on someone that you're running through
something horrific.
Yes, you would not turn your back like that at all. So a minor a minor gripe, but
again,
obviously
we're forgiving.
Because they've got to get Jerry out. Basically, they need him to escape, and this is the simplest and quickest way to get it done. But not only that, it's also going to lead to another photograph. So Jerry escapes, shoots the cop in the head. Although it actually turns out to be the throat. So what I mean by that is so Mulder comes to the scene, and he checks out the photo that was taken. The cop was shot in the throat, but in the picture he's shot in the head.
Yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure of the reading on this, but
that's what the killer intended to do.
Yeah.
But because he's not used to firing a gun, he didn't hit the head; he hit the throat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's basically what he's projecting is going to happen.
Yeah. It's just like, because obviously on this one there's no claw, there's no kind of it's like someone's taken a picture of the guy getting shot, whereas the other images we've seen have like all these weird paranormal kind of
the other images he's seeing, I think, is from his victim's eye, because it's curved almost. Yeah. And it's what he imagines he's going to do. He's going to be looming over them with the knife ready to put it in their eyeball as they're looking at him. Whereas this one, he just pictures shooting the guy and getting out of there. Yeah. But because he's not used to handling a gun, it doesn't go as planned. But I like it because they can't be. Scully can't go, well, that's a picture of him after he was shot. Yeah. Because he's in the throat and the head. They're two different wounds. Yeah. So it's a kind of psychic.
It's the only reason I ask is, or the only reason I bring it up is because it comes to something later, which we'll get into later when we get.
Okay,
get
bring it up and we'll have a little chit chat about it when we get there.
Okay, so Jerry steals the camera and the film from the drugstore, then kidnaps Scully. So yeah.
It's a wonderful sequence because you can feel the dread and the tension that's coming. You're wondering where he's going to come from, and just being under the car. Yeah, it shows that he's still quite astute with his decision making. He knows that she could probably pull a gun and do whatever, and catches her in a moment of weakness.
Yeah, and the way and I hate needles. So when that needle comes out and in the foot, it's like And I love seeing Mulder chase after the car as well. Like, Scully! Yeah. But yeah, you're kind of running with him. You're like, get there faster. But you know, he can't.
He's not going to make it.
No, he's not going to make it. So, then we start. We're cutting now between scenes at quite a fairly rapid rate because you got Mulder really digging into this photograph and looking into Jerry's history and trying to connect the photograph with the history. He makes a note of these 6 fingers. He gets his dad's obituary because he knows that the death of his father was obviously a big thing for him. Finds out that his dad was a retired dentist, which kind of clues him into the drug that Jerry's been using to dope these women up. So he goes to the medical practice that was owned by the father, finds out that there's a missing chair, which we then see that Scully is sat in. And that's when Scully and Jerry have a little bit of a chat about howlers and Sigmund Freud. So, yeah, basically Scully realizes in this moment that she has to start empathizing with this guy because it's the only way she's going to prolong the time between when he's when he's going to do his business. So she starts essentially psychoanalyzing him, which he calls out and says, great, why is everyone Sigmund Freud these days? But it really does kind of get you into this guy's head again, making you sympathize with him a bit more. The fact that he's got all this trauma in his past. His father abused his sister. He tried to protect his sister. As a result, kind of made his father someone who needed care his whole life. His sister committed suicide anyway. So it's just like, so he does this thing to these women, and in his weird, twisted, messed up way, he's protecting them from the monsters like his father, which is just tragic, absolutely tragic. So.
But it's one of the great things about good villains that you can understand why they're doing what they're doing. You may not like it, you may think it's horrible, but you can sympathise and understand why they're driven to do the horrible things that they are doing.
Yeah, it makes me want them to catch him and put him somewhere where they can treat him, rather than pop a, because most villains of the week, it's like, just pop a cap in their ass, they deserve it, boom. Encanto from Too Shy, kill that dude, and yet he ends up in an institution, whereas this guy who you actually feel empathy for, again, we'll get there when we get there, but so Mulder makes the connection that the 6 fingers in the photo might be the tombstones. On the it's a stretch.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a stretch, it's got to be said. But given the emotional connection, I don't know. It's a bit of a push for me. But whatever. So there's a nice moment from David Duchovny when he's acting, and it's when so they're still at the dentist surgery thing. And he's going over it, and he's on his own, and he's kind of pacing back and to, and he's like, 6 fingers, why is the 6? Why is the 6? And as he says, why is the 6? Like there's an officer who says, Agent Mulder, and it kind of cuts him off in his train of thought, and it's just the way it's played is really, it's almost like documentary like the way it feels very ad-libbed, that scene. It feels natural. It's just really well acted, and I always like it when I watch it for whatever reason, But so Jerry starts taking pictures of himself, then gets So this is the moment that I'm talking about. Going back to the police officer, because this scene here, and particularly Jerry's reading of it at any rate, suggests that this isn't just what
he thinks is going to happen.
What he thinks is going to happen, or what he's seeing.
Yeah.
It's almost a vision of the future, because it's like, can he tell the future? Because it's like the other, like the girls, I understand, the cop, I understand, because he's the one who's in control of that, or thinks he is. He's seen it from the perspective of, this is what I'm going to do, and then that image is projected. But on here, it's like, so he takes photos of himself, and it's of him. We learn in a bit, in a few moments, lying on the floor, dead, with a gunshot wound. And it's like, so he's like to Scully, what does this mean? What does this mean? And she's like, it means you're sick, Jerry. You need help. And he's like, no. I think it means I don't have much time. And then he starts trying to get to work on her.
Yeah.
But that implies that, because there's no way he could have known that. There's that he can't. He's not projecting that from his own mind. No, he wouldn't project that on himself. So it's like, so the cop I can understand, and I can understand even why the bullet hole is in the wrong place, because he sees himself. Just because you see yourself doing something in your own mind doesn't mean it's going to play out exactly the way you thought it would.
But maybe it's just a glimpse of the future.
Yeah. So that was my main point of contention with this whole episode, is that actually what it makes his power, it makes the weirdness of what's going on seem a little less clear. It's a little bit less clear, because he's just seen his future there. And what it is, it's almost, and I'm not saying it's a flaw in the episode, but what I am saying is that, does this mean that Jerry was somehow right?
With what?
Like the things he was seeing that may, you know what I mean? Maybe there was a spiritual element to it that only he could see because of what he'd been through. Because it's like, it's that final photo that calls everything else into question. Like, these are not just images that are coming out of his mind, but rather they're images that are going into his mind.
He could be unaware of the images. Like, he seems surprised when he sees them. So it could be completely just unaware. It's just a side effect almost.
Yeah, like I get that. It's just that the previous images imply that this is what he's envisioning happening due to, he's got intention there. And that intention directly correlates to the images that are then ingrained onto the photos. Whereas in this moment, I don't think his intention is to get shot.
No.
So it shifts the balance somewhat. Yeah. So it becomes a vision of the future.
Unless subconsciously he knows he's escaped from the police, they're going to track him down. It seems like an inevitable end for him.
Yeah. Because
it's
like stop talking because you're only.
Because I think he watches the police before he takes the picture appear. Does he not? In the graveyard, he knows they're there. Does he?
No, he doesn't know the police are there. No, he's just like chatting away with Scully.
Right.
And then because of the whole, thing, because he twigs about stuff going on in his head, he takes pictures of himself, and then that's when he sees, and that's when he's like, "What does this mean? What does this mean? It's pictures of me dead on the floor." What? So that's a clear vision of the future. So it makes me suspect that if that's what this is, if that's what this power is, like it's a vision of the future in some way, or a possible future, then that seems less like a vision that's been projected out of his mind rather than something that's been put into his mind by some other outside force. I don't know. It just, like I say, it doesn't. It's not something. It's not the kind of question that makes me think, oh, this episode's just stupid, it's rubbish. It's the kind of question that's like, it's up to you.
Yeah, it's open for interpretation.
Yeah, it's open to interpretation. It's like, I mean, could this guy do both? Is it that he saw glimpses of the future and, it's just, it's a weird one, is my takeaway from it. But it does call the earlier photos into question with regards to just precisely what they mean and where they come from. But okay. So Mulder arrives to save the day, breaks down the door. You got Jerry trying to go at Scully with the spike, trying to lobotomize her, and I'm like,
tell you something quickly when it's in my head here, because at this sequence, you always know that Scully and Mulder are safe. They're the main characters. They're not going to be killed off. But for a brief moment, that there is a definite worry that something is going to happen to Scully. Even though deep down, you know it's not. Yeah. There is that threat, that fear, the building of atmosphere and terror of this bad guy, that something could possibly happen to her. Yeah. And that's amazing that a show that's into its fourth season can put that kind of terror and weight onto one of the main characters, whom we ultimately know will be safe.
Yeah, and that's down to direction. As like, if you direct something right, your choice of shots, your blocking of the actors, the performance you get out of the actors, everything that's going on is geared in that everyone's on their A game, and you do. Like, I've seen this episode so many times now, and even on this viewing, I'm still like, oh, come on, Mulder, get through the flipping door. it's that skill as a filmmaker of being able to elongate something. It's what David Fincher talks about, is like when you the best way to build tension is stretch something. So make it take a while to get where you know it needs to get to, and it's just like but they do it brilliantly in this scene. So that's when we see the pictures of Jerry. He gets shot, and we see the pictures of himself lying dead on the floor. We get the final scene, which is Scully once again, as with the last episode, writing up a report, and she's talking about empathy for Jerry, and the need to venture into the darkness and the risk that entails. It's like, in order to catch someone like Jerry, you have to empathise with them. But obviously that comes with risks. So yeah, it's what we've seen discussed in the X-Files before, in an episode like Grotesque, which did it terribly. The one with the gargoyles and that's so literally this episode deals with everything that Grotesque dealt with, but does it in a much, much better way. Far better. So there you go.
I loved this episode. I thought it was swimming with atmosphere. I thought it had a great bad guy. It felt as if everything was thought out expertly well. There are some inconsistencies, but you know what? Like I said, you're forgiven because it's such... They're not important. They don't matter to the grander story. I think Mulder and Scully both have moments to shine. I think the bad guy's terrific. And like I said, that dread and fear that this one brings with it is just... It's terrific. For me, this has been a real highlight again. I'd say 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah. This has always been a 5 for me. And it's I think it may actually only be this time around where I clued in to the whole photo thing, where I'm like, oh, now hang on, that calls it what's going on there. And I think there are just enough questions in this with regards to logic to make me bump it down to a 4.5. But whenever I'm going through X-Files, this is an episode I never skip.
Yeah,
this is always one I look forward to getting to. From pure enjoyment level, it's a 5 out of 5. But if I'm being objective and thinking about the mechanics of storytelling and this, that, and the other, I'd say 4.5 out of 5 from me as well.
Okay, so why don't you tell me a little bit about the field where I died?
I'll tell you, it's not an
classic.
For some people, I know some people really do love it. I think it's not an episode I've seen that many times. There are a few episodes of the X-Files where it's not one that I think is a terrible story per se from my memory of it, but it just... There's one particular scene in it where Duchovny gives the worst performance that he's ever given on the show.
Right.
And it's quite cringe-inducing. Right. And beyond that, the story itself as well, I wasn't overly invested in. Right. But is like I say...
A Monster of the Week type of thing? Or
It's not. It's about a cult. If you think David
Red Museum?
Yes. If you think Red Museum, you think David Koresh, that kind of thing. Yeah. I think it is an episode that was a direct response to the, because obviously it was mid-90s when the whole David Koresh and there was that other one that I can't remember the name of that had just been, obviously the FBI was coming under fire around that time for the way they'd handled those situations, and all that stuff directly feeds in to the field where I died.
Okay,
but yeah,
great title. But it sounds as if that's all it has.
Reincarnation as well.
Well,
Okay.
Remember to join us next week where we talk about the field where I died in riveting form, as we were both captivated by that episode. As always, we appreciate you listening or watching on the YouTube channel. Remember to give us a like or a 5-star rating on iTunes or whatever platform you listen on. That would be amazing. And thanks very much. And we will see you next week for the field where I died.